Yep. First off, just want to thank all my subscribers. Appreciate you guys. Much love. I want to talk about my opinion of the Salamanca cartel today. It's been a minute since I did one of these, but the Breaking Bad universe is coming to a close with the end of Better Call Saul. I just finished season 6, episode 9. So we are almost done with this. Well, 4 episodes left. So and then we're complete with it. I've done one of these before on Walter White, and I've done one on Saul Goodman. I might have to change my Saul Goodman one because, of course, information has changed, situations have changed. So that's gonna be something I may have to revisit. So yeah, after the next couple episodes, I'm gonna revisit that. And for anyone who hasn't watched all of Breaking Bad, El Camino, or Better Call Saul up to season 6, episode 9, I do want to warn you, this video will be full of spoilers. So spoiler alert, letting you know right now. Cool, so let's get into it. So the first one I want to talk about, and I'm going to talk about their weaknesses and what I think about them as characters, right? Also, we could talk about some of their strengths. Now, Tuko, let's talk about his strength. I think his greatest strength is he commands respect, and people, they are genuinely fearful of him because they don't know what he's going to do. He's kind of unhinged, low key. So that's what I think his greatest strength is. To me, his greatest weakness is the fact all his greatest strengths are his greatest weakness also, because people fear him because of that. But also what it does is it makes it so that he thinks irrationally and does stupid things. I think Tuco was the most ineffective of all the Salamancas. He was the one that didn't have, like you could see, he didn't have a major operation going. He had a few street dealers. He was pretty well known. He had it put together, but he didn't have the income that Hector or the twins or the cousins, I should say, the cousins, or that Lalo had. He was like levels below them. And I think it's because he was so unstable. He couldn't be trusted with the bigger responsibilities, and when he didn't make the most of it. So I would say because he was so uncontrollable, that worked against him. It may have worked for him on a street level because people were like, oh shit, that's Tuco, he's fucking crazy. But when it came to doing business, you have to have contingency processes. You have to be able to think ahead and strategize. And I think he was just way too unpredictable. So I think he was the least effective out of all of them. When it came to him as a person, his character, I thought he was a psychopath. He was a maniac. I was like, man, this guy has some fucking issues. Deep trauma. You could tell he had some deep trauma. I don't know what was going on with him. Well, he came from a pretty psychopathic family. And I would assume for him, he was the kind of person that he grew up in that life. It was normal to him. And that's all he knew. So, yeah, that's what I think about Tuco Salamanca. And also, the person who I have next on here is going to be Hector. Hector's greatest strength was I think he was well organized. And he did think ahead. For when it came to operations. When it came to operations, he always was thinking of a way to expand his business. When he found out that Nacho's dad owned a upholstery business, he wanted to use that to smuggle. He was always thinking about the business, so he always thought ahead when it came to the business. And I thought that's why he was able to build his empire. I thought that was his greatest strength. His greatest weakness was the fact that he didn't think about the human side of things. And I know what you're thinking, but why does he need to? He's a cartel boss. Because you need to understand who you have working for you and what you're asking them to do. and if that's something that will come back to bite you. So I think that he was asking too much of a lot of his crew, but not giving them enough to stay loyal to him. And that ultimately like cost him, and where he just became a shell of himself because of what he was asking of Nacho. So yeah, I think that was definitely his greatest weakness. The fact that he was able to think so far in advance when it came to the business, but when it came to people, their emotions, and what he was asking of them, it didn't match what he was giving to them. Right? So I think that was definitely his greatest weakness. What I thought of him as a person, he's probably the one that I like the least. Even in Better Call Saul, when he's able to walk and talk, I actually liked him less on Better Call Saul. He was arrogant. He was an asshole, and again, he really didn't care about people or anything. It's kind of like, I'm the boss. I say what goes, and that's not a good way to win people over. And that definitely cost him in the long run. Now, two of my favorites are the cousins. The cousins, I think, were the shit. Like, so when it comes to like crime kind of shit, right? So what I think their greatest strengths were was the fact that they would observe, they did what was required of them. And they were really low maintenance. Really low maintenance. They wanted to make sure the operation ran smooth, and they would do what was asked of them. They were definitely team players. They thought about the cartel. They thought about the family. And they were going to do what they felt was best to make it all run smoothly. And they knew how to do it. I think that was their greatest strength. Their greatest weakness was the fact that they may have been too quiet. And they may not have had, I don't think they had a great enough hand in the business. At least from what we've seen, or what I was led to believe, it didn't seem like they were people who were interested in learning the logistics of the business. They would go and they'd execute a plan perfectly, but they weren't too concerned about the day-to-day operations and how that ran. I think had they taken that up, they would have been way more effective. And I think they could have taken over, and they could have sent somebody else to do their dirty work. And that was also part of the problem, because they didn't think about the day-to-day logistics. They just thought of themselves as making this move and making sure that this runs smoothly. When it came time to take out Hank, or they weren't even looking for Hank at first. They were looking for Gus. And when he told them who it was, they got Tuko. They decided to do it themselves. They could have sent a hit squad, but no, they wanted to go themselves. They needed to see themselves beyond what they were, beyond just making the system run smooth. They had to become part of that system, and they had to become part of the leadership. They didn't take initiative, basically. Or maybe they took too much initiative. But when it came to being in a leadership position, they didn't really take initiative. They kind of fell in line, and they did what they had to do. I think had they seen themselves as leaders, they could have been way more effective. Now, as people, I think they really didn't have too much of a personality, but they did say a lot with the little that they said. Their backstory was pretty traumatic. You could see they were bred into this shit. They were taught how to be tough. They were taught how to put the family first. But unfortunately, we don't really get to see a lot of their personality. It's like all that they are is making sure that this runs. That's it. That's all. So I think that's kind of sad, actually. It really, really is kind of sad. If there's another spin-off, I hope it's on them, so we could see more about them. I know that there's definitely a story to tell there. They're getting up there in age, so that probably won't happen. But if there's younger versions of these guys, I would love to see it. And the last one is definitely my favorite, Lalo Salamanca. He has a lot of pros, a lot of strengths. With Lalo, he's very intelligent, very charismatic, uh, friendly, funny. He's the kind of guy, and it's crazy. He's the kind of guy where if you don't know him, that you're going to like him. He's a cool guy. Oh shit, he's laughing. Oh shit, and you're gonna feel comfortable. If you do know him, you're gonna feel uneasy because he is very unpredictable. Very unpredictable. I think he was almost the perfect cat for all of. He was the perfect guy for all this. But I can tell you where his biggest weakness was trust. He had a lack of trust, and that cost him several times. So the first time you could see his lack of trust is when he sends Jimmy to go get the money for him to get bailed out, which Kim ends up calling him out on. He goes right away, and he doesn't have trust in the people around him. He wants to take over because he wants to make sure shit is running well. Instead, what he could have done is he could have had Nacho run day to day, him kind of overlook it, make sure everything's running smooth. But instead, he takes it upon himself to make sure everything is running right, and he has to be at the forefront of it. And I think that really kind of alienates everyone else, where they feel like they're not part of the team, right? They're on the outside. Everybody's an outsider because he doesn't trust anyone. And because he doesn't trust anyone, he doesn't build those relationships. Again, he's very charismatic, very intelligent. And had he had the right team around him, had he had a team that he could trust, he could have defeated Gus. What he could have done is he could have sent Jimmy and or Kim, however he did it. He could have sent them to the house, to Gus's house. Had everybody storm there, just like he did. Had everybody storm there and Jimmy's apartment, which he did perfectly. And he could have had other people, right, at the laundromat go in with him, and he could have took the video, killed Gus. That would have been it. But because he had a lack of trust, he didn't have a team around him that could assist with everything. He was a one-man operation, and that worked for the majority of his life. That worked, him just being the main guy, him just being the only guy, because he knew what he wanted to do, he knew how he wanted to do it, and he trusted in himself to do it. But had he had given a little bit of trust to someone else, then maybe he would have been able to execute that plan. So that's easy for me to say from this angle, right? Now thinking of him as a person. Why didn't he have that trust? Well, as soon as he let Nacho in, what ends up happening? He lets Nacho in, and Nacho ends up betraying him. So you could see that there's a lot of reason for him not to have trust. There's a lot of reason for him to say, nah, I'm cool with that. And for me, I think he's, like when I said unpredictable, it's not that he doesn't know what he's going to do. He knows what he's going to do. It's just that you never know what he's going to do. And you know exactly what he's capable of. That's what makes him very threatening. It was a trip. I seen Nacho as the kind of guy who didn't look forward to killing. If he could get whatever he needed without killing, he would. But he wasn't going to let killing stop him. So if he had to, he would take out whoever he needed to make sure business got done, or what he needed to, the plan that he needed to execute would be executed. But if he could do it without it, for sure, he would do it without it. But he wasn't gonna let that stop him. So I think, again, had he had the right trust and the right people around him, he could have defeated Gus. But yeah, that's my list of the Salamanca family. That's how I view them. I think collectively they were pretty strong, and had they put their resources together, they could have went even further. But it seemed like a lot of them were working independently, And that's where they broke down, because all of them working independently, with the exception of Hector. His downfall was something else, but again, him not looking into him asking way too much of people. But for the other ones, as soon as Hector was gone, because he was the seems like he was the head of the family, as soon as he was out, they all stepped up, but they all stepped up in ways where they were independent of each other. They should have put their resources together. Yeah, why weren't the twins with Lalo at the end? That could have definitely changed things. Or the cousins. Why weren't they with Lalo at the ending? Yeah, if they wouldn't have worked independently, if they would have worked as a group, they were strong enough, smart enough, and had enough resources to defeat Gus. But that's how the ball bounces. But yeah, much love, everybody. Appreciate you guys. Much love to the Nasty crew. Much love to my Y babies. And with that, we out. Peace.